Now, this particular plane was actually on its fifth journey of the day, flying both to and from Cairo, making stops in both Africa and Europe before it ultimately vanished. Some analysts suggesting someone on the ground at one of those stops may have been up to no good. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer was a CIA-trained intel operative who also worked for Boeing Phantom, works looking into airline terror threats. He's now with the London Center for Policy Research. Mark Thiessen is a Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Dr. Sebastian Gorka is the Major General Matthew C. Horner Distinguished Chair of Military Theory at Marine Corps University and the author of Defeating Jihad. Colonel Shaffer, I want to start with you first. Based on what we know at this moment, you heard Trace's report, and based on what we know about the activity of that airplane, that it zigzagged, took a couple sharp turns before there was detection of it plunging in altitude. What can you conclude from that?
Something catastrophic happened. That's the only thing we know for sure. With that said, the pattern of the flight, where it went, and also looking at the fact that a Russian airliner was brought down over the Sinai under very similar circumstance, tells me that the likelihood is that there was an insider threat. Somewhere along this line, someone penetrated security, got physical access to the airplane, and was able to put some sort of device on it. The device coming out of the Sinai in the Russian aircraft was actually one which was essentially altitude detonated. I think this one had to be timed by the fact that it made several stops. But this is something we have to recognize, is that we have to look across the board at, is the policies of every airport that we fly to, by the fact that some radical is going to find a way to put something on an aircraft, and this is no small issue.
So what about that, though? You know, Dr. Gorka, I want to bring you in here, because when we look at the threat level here in the U.S., and LAX is raising their security posture tonight, you look at the fact that these people are coming in from airports and airlines across the world, and they're coming into the United States, and they didn't pass through the same sort of rigorous security measures that we employ here in the United States. Where are we as far as the overall threat of flying? Is it safe to fly?
Well, if you read the publications of the jihadi groups that wish to destroy America, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda, they are explicit. They talk about how this is still an incredibly attractive target. Think about this. You have defenseless civilians. You have a high concentration of people who cannot defend themselves. And we have thousands, tens of thousands of flights every day, and in many cases from airports that are not up to the standards of the United States or our Western allies. If you're talking about landing in Eritrea or other parts of North Africa or elsewhere, we have no way to guarantee the people with access to the airframes on the tarmac have been vetted in ways that provide confidence to the people who are getting on those planes.
And Mark, you look at what Chairman McCall had to say about this today, and while he made sure to say that there could have been many things that happened here, he's not ruling out terrorism, and in fact he went on to suggest that this could have been an inside job and that a bomb could have been placed on this aircraft.
Sure.
I mean, this is coming from our House Homeland Security Chairman. It's a scary thought.
It is a scary thought, but also it's very important to recognize that while it's important that we have defensive measures, the way you protect the terrorists, we had a mantra in the Bush administration: we're going to fight them over there so we don't have to face them over here. And that's the reason we have the growing terrorist threat today, is that we have stopped fighting them over there, that this administration has been so reluctant to fight them over there that they're starting to get closer and closer to us. If you think about it, since Barack Obama, when he ignored all the threats about ISIS, dismissed them as a JV team, there was a cancer that was allowed to grow in Iraq and Syria. It's now spread throughout the world. Since 2014, when they established their caliphate, ISIS has carried out 75 attacks in 20 countries that have killed 1,280 people and injured 1,770 others. They're in Libya, they're in Yemen, they're in Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Algeria, Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan, Nigeria, Afghanistan, and we now know they're in Paris and in Brussels. So this terrorist threat is growing. The tide of war is not receding, and if we want to protect our country, we need better airport security, but we need to take the fight to them where they live so that we don't have to face them where we live.
Colonel Shaffer, though, what we're reporting tonight, and you heard from Trace, that the satellites didn't pick up any any indication that there was an explosion that took place. Does that, based on your theory that something horrible happened here, does that help you to rule anything out?
No, the fact is the aircraft went down in a catastrophic fashion. We don't know necessarily if the aircraft had a bomb that went off below, for example. You couldn't see the blast effect. I've heard others say that they did see a blast effect. So I think the jury's out on that. But I think what we have to look at here is how this happened. They're going to get the aircraft parts, and I was reading an article about what the investigation will entail. We got to look at the policies. As Seb said and as Mark said, look, we now have a situation where we have an active threat. We know it's there. We know we have outbound, outlying airports which do not have adequate security, and so we've got to take this seriously. And by the fact that we have to look at the fact that Europe and other places have had really bad policies in place which have allowed networks such as ISIS to establish itself. So we've got to look at this at all levels of policy, because this is not simply a technical issue. This is not simply the fact that an airplane was bombed and went down. Something led to the bad results, and that is bad policy.
And Dr. Gorka, you say there's significance in the places that are involved here, that this was a flight leaving Paris going to Cairo. Why is the place of significance to you?
Well, great significance to jihadis. Remember, Paris has been attacked multiple times in recent months. And don't forget that Egypt, the destination of the flight, is the front line in this war. Egypt, President Sisi has declared war on ISIS, on the Muslim Brotherhood. The ISIS affiliate Bait al-Maqdisi is very heavily active in the Sinai, killing police officers, killing civilians. So this also lends credence to the possibility that this is a terrorist attack. But let me just compliment what Mark said. Mark gave a very impressive survey of the jihadi threat across the globe. Your viewers need to understand also the threat is already here. Since the caliphate was declared by ISIS, we have arrested or killed 98 people in America linked to ISIS. 30% of them have wanted to kill Americans on U.S. soil. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. And let's not forget, an ISIS fighter who died in the Middle East as a jihadi used to work at the Minneapolis airport with access to airframes. This is the reality of the threat. It's not just 8,000 miles away, it's already here.
And Mark, what do you make of the White House response to this tonight? They're basically saying we can't conclude anything yet, and they really haven't even used the word terrorism quite yet. Hillary Clinton has, by the way.
And yes, and on top of that, they immediately went into a defensive crouch and started listing the litany of all the setbacks that ISIS has had in Iraq and Syria since they actually started taking the threat seriously. That's a little bit like if you get a cancer diagnosis that you've got lung cancer and you do nothing about it for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you start treating it and the tumor's reduced, and oh, how wonderful the tumor's reduced. Yeah, but it's spread to all the other organs of your body. That's what we're facing right now. The cancer of ISIS has spread all across the world. It's spread in Europe. I mean, if they were able to get a bomb onto a plane at Charles de Gaulle Airport, there are planes, hundreds of planes leaving Charles de Gaulle Airport for America every week. So this is not going to be contained to the Mediterranean. This could be coming to us very quickly.
And a reminder that 70 workers at that airport were fired in December for ties to Islamic extremism. So I want to thank all of you for being here tonight on this breaking news. Good to have you.